Hello, guys and gals, and welcome to another episode of Skills and Abilities. Today we're going to be going over the last skill and ability I think I've got to go over, which is Blade Shield. It's one that I kind of forgot to go over at all. Or maybe, I'm pretty sure I made the video, but then I didn't upload it, which is pretty common with me. And this is an interesting ability. It's also one of a trio of abilities, the Blade Sentinel, Blade Fury, and Blade Shield. Right off the bat, let me just go ahead and say this. Blade Shield burns durability. Okay? Blade Sentinel doesn't. Blade Fury doesn't burn durability. Blade Shield, on the other hand, does burn durability, so do be aware of that. I demonstrated this in the last video by shaving one of the durability points off of my Flesh Ripper with Blade Shield. So if you are going to be using an ethereal item with Blade Fury or Blade Sentinel, keep in mind that you cannot use Blade Shield with a ethereal item because it will break it. Forbidden. Now, Blade Shield has gone under some pretty crazy changes in the past couple patches, and honestly, it's kind of ridiculous now. First off, they increased the duration and matched it up with similar abilities, like, for instance, Fade and Burst of Speed. So if you take a look at Blade Shield versus Fade, 396 seconds, 396 seconds. It now has a similar duration to other abilities. Now, this is actually a lot better than it used to be, but it used to be so bad that it was so short, you'd cast it and you have to constantly recast it all the time. And it's a pretty high mana cost ability, as you can see at 73 freaking mana. So having to spam cast it is a little rough. On top of this, they also kind of removed a little bit of the penalty from it. It used to have a pretty hefty penalty. In fact, I think if we go to the Amazon Basin page, you can see it says 1/4. It used to be like 25% of its nominal value. Now it's 75%, which is only a 25% penalty, whereas before it was a 75% penalty, which is a lot better. So not only has it gotten a penalty removal, basically, so that it no longer has that huge penalty on it, it also has a much longer duration, which makes it a lot easier to maintain. And on top of that, it also has a lot more damage now, thanks to the synergies. So it has an 800% synergy bonus. It's the same synergy bonus on all of these, which is 10%, 10%, and 10%. So if you multiply that out, 10% times 20, 10% times 20, you get 800% increase in damage. Now, the magical thing about Blade Shield, Blade Fury, and Blade Sentinel is that damage is minimum and maximum damage added directly to the attack, which is pretty insane. Because it means that you just have a minimum of 700 and a maximum of 845, no matter what weapon you have on. And then that adds to the weapon. Obviously, when you put a weapon on, it goes even higher. On top of this, enhanced damage like Fortitude and Phoenix, although it doesn't show properly on the character panel, does actually apply to this damage. And on top of this, that damage is not penalized. So the 845 and 700 that you see there is not penalized by that 25% reduction, which makes it absolutely insane in terms of damage output. Now, how does Blade freaking Shield actually work? Well, when you're standing there, it just kind of, like hits the target. I mean, it shings them a little bit. I mean, you can kind of see it if I just kind of stand here. Hold on, I just killed that guy. That poor unfortunate soul. If I just kind of stand here next to a guy or just let him wail on me a little bit, you'll see that he just kind of gets hit naturally by the Blade Shield as I'm standing here. I mean, nothing really too fancy about it. Come here. Now, as you use the ability, it actually gets an additional attack. This is something that you can do by spam casting it. So if you spam cast it, it basically gets kind of like a free attack when it's cast. But due to the really high mana cost of it, it's kind of prohibitive to do that. It doesn't really help out much when you just kill your entire mana. Also, it doesn't matter what range your weapon is. You can have a range adder 4 weapon, like a halberd, and it will still be basically at the base range. So it's always going to be at as basically a range adder 0. as you can see here. The ability itself does not return damage with Iron Maiden. It's important. Most of the stuff actually doesn't work with this, believe it or not. Like Crushing Blow doesn't work. Used to work back in the day. It was pretty overpowered when it did. But like Crushing Blow, Open Wounds, things like that don't work with it. The only things that do actually apply to Blade Shield are negative target's defense. And of course, we can actually look on here. So all the bonuses that apply to Blade Sentinel apply. So min damage, max damage, critical strike, deadly strike, elemental damage, which is penalized, by the way, attack rating percentage, negative monster defense per hit, extra roll for monsters, better chance of magic items, and skill bonuses. And then on top of that, we also have the negative target's defense, ITD, damage plus, so that's things like grief. Grief actually works with it. Plus skill damage, enemy negative resistance, chance to cast on attack, but only on a successful attack, which is like kind of strange. Prevent monster heal, life and mana leech. It does not apply the bonus damage to the skill damage. That's a whole nother thing. It can be active at the same time as all the others, like Cyclone Armor, Bone Armor, Chilling Armor, Frozen Armor, Shiver Armor, etc. In general, though, it's a lot more limited than Blade Fury, and it's a lot more limited than Blade Sentinel. Blade Fury, for instance, can apply Crushing Blow. It can apply Open Wounds. It can apply quite a few more things that can definitely make the item really, really effective. Unfortunately, because it does burn durability, you can't use items like this with it. This is a very effective War Fist that is ethereal, doesn't have any repairs durability on it. You can use this with Blade Fury, and you can use this with Blade Sentinel, but you can't use this with the Blade Shield, which is a whole other thing. So Blade Shield can help you by leeching life. It can also cause a stop in the monster. So if you guys faster hit recovery attempts, so when the monster gets hit for a certain amount of his HP, there's a very good chance you can put him into a faster hit recovery attempt, and that faster recovery attempt is obviously going to cause the monster to stop for just a second. And it just basically is going to give you a little bit of a defensive layer as you're fighting. So as a melee character, having those additional faster hit recovery attempts is certainly nice. One of the main problems, though, is that, well, to build it, you really kind of have to go into the Blade Fury tree. You need lots of points into it so they can actually last long enough so it's moderately useful. Most of the time, most players just don't really have the points to spend into it. It's also at the bottom of the tree and requires quite a bit of effort to get there. You need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points just to get it. And then at that point, you need a whole lot more to actually beef it up to be useful. If you're a trap assassin or something like that, it could be an interesting one-point wonder because you're running lots of trap skillers anyway, which could potentially beef it up. It is useful, but I think one of the main issues with Blade Shield is that I'm not going to say the synergies are hurting it because, quite honestly, it didn't have synergies before. It was terrible without the synergies. The synergies actually did make it better. And in doing so, also kind of tied it to the other abilities. It is also very highly dependent on what weapon you're using as well. So the higher damage weapon you have, the more blade shield damage you're going to get. As you can see here, my blade shield is pretty close to the same damage as my blade fury. It just attacks less often, which, is the thing. Personally, I'm not exactly sold on Blade Shield. Blade Shield does have its usefulnesses. There is a specific build that revolves around the Chaos runeword, which is a Whirlwind Claw, and it utilizes the Blade Shield to get more damage out of your Whirlwind, because you're basically whirlwinding through the monsters, and as you whirlwind through the monsters, your Blade Shield can also slice them up as you're whirlwinding, providing you with a second form of damage. Essentially just imagine you're whirlwinding like this, and your Blade Shield is also hitting the targets as you're whirlwinding. It just gives you an additional way to dish out damage to the targets, in tandem. I think Blade Sentinel and Blade Fury are far more effective than Blade Shield, but depending on what you're setting up for your character, it certainly doesn't hurt to cast it if you have a weapon that is not breakable, like, an ethereal flesh ripper. If you're utilizing something that is indestructible or something that can be repaired, Blade Shield is actually a extremely effective additional ability that you can add into your play. If you're a ranged character like Blade Fury, you are going to have to get up into the mix of things if you want your Blade Shield to actually hit the target. Like, for instance, let's say you were fighting Uber Diablo, just as an example. You come over here to, this is a very common place for Uber Diablo. Let's say Uber Diablo is this rock right here. You're going to have to stand basically right next to him and then utilize your Blade Fury like this. Probably also casting Blade Sentinels, probably get like 5 of those down. Make sure those are slicing up Uber Diablo's feet, and then you're just going to fire off your Blade Furies. And this way you could potentially get all 3 of your attacks basically hitting at the same time. Your Blade Shield would be proccing, your Blade Fury is going to be hitting, the Blade Sentinels are going to be slicing, and, you slice, you dice, you make julienne fries. It's just as my name says, the Veg-O-Matic. All in all, this character is pretty insane. This build is insane. I don't really think Blade Shield is one of the ones that most people utilize because a lot of the times you find like these godlike claws, which is what you're looking for, and then you can't really use Blade Shield anymore. But if you're in a situation where you can use Blade Shield, then do. If you're in a situation where you can't use Blade Shield, then take that thing off your bar and never touch it, because you don't want it reducing the durability of your weapons and breaking them, especially when you have no ability to repair them. So, to recap, Blade Shield has been buffed significantly. Damage is much higher. Duration is much higher. The penalty has been taken away. The ability for it to save your life by causing faster recovery stuns in other players and monsters is definitely very nice. Works very good with the Chaos Claw with Whirlwind. And in general, the synergy bonus has gone absolutely insane with this particular ability and made it so that plus the skills can beef it up dramatically now. As you can see, it says 845 damage. If I take off 3 skills, it goes down to 555. Now let's add that out real quick. Hold on. Let's just go. What was it? 800. Let's just put it back in real quick. So 845 minus 740. 740. I was looking at the wrong numbers. So 101, divide that by 3. That's going to get us a total of 35 maximum and minimum damage per skill point, which is pretty nice. That's actually really freaking nice. That's way more than you get with a plus 10 max damage charm, as an example. And there's no penalty on that 35, whereas there is a penalty on the plus 10 max damage. So as you can see, plus the skills help out Blade Shield tremendously, just like they help out Blade Fury and Blade Sentinel tremendously now because of the synergy bonuses. So adding in more plus to skills is definitely the way to go now, as opposed to maximum damage charms. One thing that I would definitely do on this character is swap out all the max damage charms for trap skillers. Of course, you still need lots of attack rating, though, which is an issue. Attack rating is kind of like just a problem across the board on this entire build. As you can see, my Blade Shield attack rating is only 3,645. My Blade Sentinel attack rating is only 3,645. And my Blade Fury is 10,936, but that's only because I'm using the Angelic combo. As you can see, that brings it down to 3,412 without the Angelic combo. Attack rating just becomes a problem for all these characters. That's one of the reasons why I like this so much, because it has a negative 50% target defense. If you use this one with Blade Shield, you get the negative 50% targets defense, but if you use this one, which is not Zotted, you can put an Eth rune in it, bring it up to negative 75% targets defense, and you can get even more negative defense, but you cannot use Blade Shield anymore because it will rip the durability off the item and eventually break it, which is no good. So it depends on how you want to set the character up, what kind of items you fall into, whether you want to use Blade Shield or not. Blade Shield may very well be one of those abilities that you avoid like the plague, because you might have something, like a ethereal flesh ripper or some god tier claw, like for instance this claw that you're utilizing with Blade Fury, and you just don't want to risk ever losing any durability on it, so you just avoid using Blade Shield. Or maybe you have something even better, or maybe you gave up and you're using a Zotted Flesh Ripper, or you have like a Death at an Axe or something. Whatever it may be, just keep in mind that don't use Blade Shield with anything that burns, that you can't afford to burn durability on. I don't think there's anything else to talk about with Blade Shield. I mean, we did kind of talk a little bit about the past of the ability. So back in the old days before they fixed it, it used to proc Crushing Blow and all sorts of other things, which was crazy. And was actually insane. It was actually a pretty steady tactic was to use Blade Shield and grab like 100% CB and let Blade Shield just like rip down a target all by itself. You wouldn't even really need to attack them because the Blade Shield would do it for you. Now it doesn't do that anymore. That was obviously because they nerfed it back in the day, but it probably deserved it. I mean, you can still apply Crushing Blow with Blade Fury, which is not a big deal, and Blade Fury is actually surprisingly good at killing monsters. So, I mean, as a part of the set, it certainly still works very well. Anyway, as always, I do appreciate you guys and gals watching my videos, even when we're just talking about an ability like Blade Shield. And if you have any questions about Blade Shield, let me know, and I'll see if I can get you an answer for them. Be sure to put them down in the comments. As always, thanks for watching, and keep watching.